We're Brad and Emily Kirby, and we've been married for 13 years.
We met at Louisiana State University in 1997. We were both freshmen in college, and specifically met at the Baptist Student Union at LSU. We both served there with different ministries and were vice presidents, and did different things there. We went on mission trips together. We went to the different functions of the BSU, and kind of were just informal friends when we started going to LSU together. So that's how we met. And then it wasn't until later we started working at church together, and we went to seminary together at New Orleans Seminary. And so from '97, we first met each other. We just kind of had the same trajectory in life for school and for ministry.
So Brad proposed to me. We had been working at the same church, and then he moved to a full-time position at a church about 30 minutes away. And the church that I was at, we were going to have a big New Year's Eve bash. And he had led me to believe that he couldn't come, that he had some event at his church, and so he wasn't going to be there. Well, he had set it up to where everybody knew that he was going to propose to me at this thing but me. So he called my parents, apparently they knew, and so my parents show up at this event, which wasn't abnormal because they had done it before. It was a really fun party that we had. And so everybody is, mingling and doing their thing, and all of a sudden one of my college students comes up to me and hands me a piece of paper. And at that moment I was like, oh, okay, something's going on here. And Brad had written all these letters to take me on this scavenger hunt, and it was all these memories that we had had together, and it was really sweet and romantic. And it was supposed to end with me walking down the aisle of the sanctuary of our church and him being there to propose to me. Well, we had a goof up where I didn't understand one of the clues, and the college student that was supposed to follow me around didn't follow me around. So I end up just coming back in the sanctuary because I'm thoroughly confused. And there's everybody like kind of in shock, like, she's here and she's not supposed to be here. So Brad just got on one knee and proposed anyway.
I was in the middle of, I thought I had like 20, 30 minutes left, and I was in the middle of showing the ring to Emily's mom and dad, and then everybody's looking off to the side, and so I just remember being like, okay, and let's just go ahead and do this now, will you marry me? But it was awesome. There's other things in there, I'm not the most romantic guy ever, but these weren't even just letters. I remember I made them look like little scrolls and had burnt the edges of them. Yes. And I trusted a youth. You should never do that. She let me down. She let me down.
It was very romantic and sweet.
Mm-hmm. That's a hard question. We have been blessed. What I would say is, number one, comparatively to other people and hear their stories, we've been blessed, and we've only been married for a short time. We've had a series of, I think, hard things that have happened. We, as soon as we were married, we had to go through Hurricane Katrina and Rita that came through, and we were first-time homeowners and dealing with that. So as soon as we got married, we kind of had to flee the state and to be apart, and had a young baby that was involved with this. We've gone through challenges of losing some babies and some pregnancies that we've had as we were trying to grow our family. And then obviously early on in our marriage, I was diagnosed with cancer very early, also with a little tiny newborn baby. And so I don't know which one of those would be the toughest or the most challenging. They're all kind of the same to me. So there's been a number of them. I don't know if there's anything else you would say. I think all of them were probably equally challenging for us. Just dealing with that, it was more so not even just the situation, but the fact that it's happening as a new couple. All of the hard things that happen as new couples are hard enough. And then, losing, having miscarriages and having to go through hard things like Category 5 hurricanes coming into town, and getting diagnosed with cancer. And initially the results didn't look good. And so trying to figure out and how to navigate, which is already a hard and a complex time of life, navigating that with all kind of added pressure was tough. It was a real challenge for us.
I think through all of the challenges, God has shown himself to be faithful, that life is unpredictable, and you're not assured of anything, but God is faithful, and He is true, and He's everlasting, even though this life is a mist. And I think He's also shown Himself in that while we love each other, and Brad's a wonderful person, that we're not perfect, and we can't meet each other's every need that each other has, and we can't be perfect for one another. And so He's shown that He's faithful even in that where we fail and we fall short, He's going to be there. He's the one that really completes us, not each other, like Jerry Maguire wants to say. But that God's the one that really is, He's everything, and He's faithful and true.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. I think the other thing is on the back end of those, the more of those things you have, I look back on them, and we stand on the other side of it. So here we are today, only 13 years into marriage, and we've had these hard things happen, but we live, we survive, we have hope. Matter of fact, I look back on them, and not only am I reminded that God was faithful, and that He was faithful then, but that whatever comes ahead, I know right now there will be more challenges. I mean, this is what I look ahead to other couples, and I just know about life is that tomorrow there will be something to overcome. There will be more struggles. My body will waste away. We'll have issues as our kids get older, and I pray ahead of those things, but I'm reminded that God has taken us through, and He has taken us through the wilderness. He has overcome those things, and He'll do it again. And honestly, I look back and say, while I wouldn't want to go through those things again, I wouldn't want to go through being diagnosed with cancer again, I look back and can 100% see ways that God used it to share the gospel. I can see how those things helped our marriage grow. You know, not that you would ever want that to be the roadmap for growing a tighter marriage and improving your communication, but those things put it in hyperdrive, you know. Things that I wouldn't have wanted to go through in the first couple months of marriage, boy, it really sped up our communication and relying on one another and making sure that we are dependent upon the Lord together. And so those things have ended up being not really challenges. They have ended up being blessings, as the Word says. Suffering produces patience, and perseverance, hope. And that's happened. That's happened with these things even in our marriage. Yeah. Let me answer first, because I'm not a romantic guy. Probably one of the most romantic things I would have done is the proposal part, honestly. You know, scrolls and burning candles, I just tend to not be a romantic guy. I think even my strategy of getting Emily to marry me was more so not romance, it was more wear her down is the way it was. It was, my strategy for getting Emily to like me wasn't romance, it was, I'm going to find out everywhere she is, and I'll just be there, you know. And she'd call and say, I have to go to a funeral. Be like, I'll go too, you know. And that counts as a date because there's flowers and I'm dressed up. So I'm there.
He even tried to get into a women's conference that I was doing the music for.
You just show up, you know. And after a while, I feel like she would just say my name enough, and see me around enough that when I was gone, I'd be like, oh man, like an infection. Brad's not here anymore, you know, kind of a thing. But I don't know about romantic. I think for me, my idea of romance, maybe Emily's idea of romance are different. And my idea would be putting the kids to bed so she didn't have to do that. But I'll let her answer for the romance thing. I may not be the most romantic guy.
So he doesn't give himself enough credit. He can be romantic. And my favorite memory is the first Valentine's Day that we were married. I was working late and I had to commute, so I wasn't going to get home till like 8 o'clock at night. And Brad had taken upon himself to provide dinner for us, a home-cooked meal, which Brad does not cook. And not only had he cooked this really yummy meal for us with flowers and candles, and it was all ready and I didn't have to do anything, but he had had enough forethought to like get recipes and things from people at our church so that to ensure that it tasted good, and it was really good. So that's my favorite romantic memory of us.
I would say we probably, you know, I don't want to speak for both of us. I would say I don't know how much marriage advice I have. I can give you what I think has been helpful for us, and I would say two things. One would be probably routinely, I know for me, if I were to go back in time 13 years ago and sit down with newlywed Brad, what would I want to tell him? I would tell him, make sure that routinely, even together and alone, that I remind myself of why I'm married and the purposes that God has for marriage. You know, that makes sense. I want to remind myself that marriage is not about being happy, although I would love to be happy in marriage, and I think that's a byproduct. But I want to remind myself, why did God go through all of this trouble since Genesis, the beginning of it, to create marriage and put man and woman together? And remind myself that it really is greater than my happiness or companionship. It's to show me a picture of the gospel, of the bride and bridegroom relationship, and that marriage is about holiness, and that ultimately how we interact with one another and how I am as a husband will either share the gospel with people and show them Jesus, or it will not. And I think when I understand that, the why we're married, it helps me with maybe practical things of how to do that. So when I know that my marriage ought to show the world, and it ought to show men how to love their wives like Christ loved the church, like Ephesians says, it'll help me do real simple things that I think are helpful advice. For me, I would say it helps me with the small things, and this is the last thing I'll say. I think a lot of guys spend a lot of time on the big things like Valentine's Day and flowers at the store and planning big dates, and those things are awesome, and I need to be better at doing those. I feel like for us, the things that matter more are the small things. Times where even if I'm not a hand holder, well, I will make an effort to hold Emily's hand, I think means more than a bouquet of flowers to her. Or when I will know that she desperately, the part of the day she hates worst is bathing the kids and putting them to bed. If I can do that, it's better than any date that we might plan. Or times where we'll just sit down together in the midst of a busy day and we take time to have a conversation. The small things, while they're small and cheap, I think matter more. And I think the advice to younger Brad would be, let me be more intentional about the small things because they get more bang for the buck and they matter more.
I would say there's got to be a lot of forgiveness in marriage. You know, you can hold on to a lot of really small, dumb things and have a really horrendous marriage, or you can choose to forgive and overlook and love the person, and that's something that has helped me. And I think one thing that we've done right is try to spend time together, try to work through conflict, try to maintain that commitment that we first made when we were married, that we were not going to divorce. You know, no matter what happens, that's not even going to be an option for us, that we're going to work through things and we're going to make it last.